Today we are taking it back to the 80s because we are once again visiting Charles Xavier's second class of students, the New Mutants. The New Mutants is one of my favorite X-Men spin-off titles, it's filled with some of my favorite characters, and in this video series I've been taking a look at the unique ideological growth each character goes through during Claremont's original run, and today we're positioning our magnifying glass onto Roberto Da Costa, often called Bobby by his friends, and called Sunspot as a mutant codename. As I mentioned in my video focused on Danny Moonstar, when it comes to some of the more diverse characters that Claremont introduced us to, he at times leans on cultural stereotypes, and I think there's a few that I've been able to identify over the course of this run, and we can talk about those as they come up. Overall though, the introduction of this character is a wonderful thing. I'm very happy he's still around today, and I think the arc is very well done here. Now let's actually talk about that cultural background a little bit so we can set the foundation for who Bobby is, what his life has been like so far, and what his world outlook is when the story begins. While the character in various forms of media has been an unfortunate subject of whitewashing, it's important that we remember Bobby is Afro-Latino. He has a Brazilian mother and an Afro-Brazilian father. I believe this makes him the first Latino mutant that we're introduced to. He also comes from a wealthy family. His father is a millionaire businessman, which I think makes him technically the wealthiest member of the New Mutants. Unless Magma counts for some weird reason, but I don't know if her wealth has ever been quantified in any specific way, but we will get to her in another video some other time. Today is for Bobby. As far as powers go, Sunspot has the ability to absorb solar radiation and use it to make himself physically stronger, to fly, and to enhance his durability. So he's an upper-class Afro-Latino mutant kid, but what is he actually like? Well, this is where we can pinpoint perhaps what is some of the cultural stereotypes that are coming through in the writing, as Latino men can often be depicted as having a passionate temperament, in other words, being very sexual beings, and being very aggressive beings as well. To a degree, Bobby is both these things. He's a charmer and a smooth talker to varied success, and he does often let his anger get the best of him, often responding to conflict with emotional or sometimes even physical outbursts. I should add here that he also is the youngest of the group though. At least that's what the original intention seemed to be. It seems like the ages of the team got shifted and got murkier throughout the run, but the details of that aren't too important as long as we do take note of the fact that he is a very young boy. With all of that being said, let's move on to his first appearance in Marvel graphic novel number 4, which includes the manifestation of his power as our opening scene. We are first introduced to Bobby as he's displaying his athletic prowess during an intense soccer game in Brazil. This scene also gives us a first look at the impulsive nature of Bobby's anger. He's intentionally beat to the ground here while the other team makes derogatory and racist remarks at him, and as a result, Bobby immediately tackles his attacker and a fistfight ensues where again, he's barraged with comments about the color of his skin. And there's a connection here between those racist remarks and the actual manifestation of Bobby's powers. The player beating on him says to him, "Your father's wealth can't change the color of your skin. You're still black, an animal masquerading as a human being." The word black there being in bold, and that's when Bobby's skin does begin to change actually, and in fact, he turns completely, truly black. Now this is a bit of a surface level and certainly now outdated racial metaphor, but his race is an inherent part of the character's origin and history, and for a character created in the 1980s to be an avenue for the audience to become more informed about racial dynamics in Brazil, I think that's good subject matter to bring up even if it isn't ever presently addressed and expanded upon, especially since those racial dynamics differ greatly from the United States, for example. And this is, again, one of the many reasons why the whitewashing of Bobby in various forms of media is extremely disappointing and disingenuous to the character. In this scene, we also meet two other critically important characters in Bobby's life, and that is first, his father Emmanuel, who's seen cheering him on at this soccer game, giving us a first indication that they might have a pretty close father-son bond. And secondly, he's accompanied by Juliana, who is Bobby's girlfriend, who notably, while his friends run away from him because of his powers, she actually comes down from the stands and embraces him and promises that they'll get through any challenges together. Which is a contrast to Bobby's father, who is in disbelief at the whole event and makes his way towards the exit instead of towards his son, which sort of pulls down the curtains and reveals that maybe there's more to that father-son bond than meets the eyes. At this time in the book, we also learn that Donald Pierce, a member of the Hellfire Club who's gone rogue, is planning on murdering Bobby, and the so far assembled team of Danny, Rain, and Shan, put together by Charles Xavier, go on a mission to intervene and stop the assassination. So we cut forward in time to when this team has made their way to Brazil in search of Bobby, and here we also learn that there's already been an attempt to abduct Bobby recently, and also, more concerning, his girlfriend Juliana has disappeared. Eventually they track down Bobby, who, in trying to save his girlfriend, also ends up captured by the soldiers of the Hellfire Club, and they're both about to be executed when the other members of the team join the fight in an attempt to save the day. What follows is one of the most pivotal moments of Bobby's life, and it's unfortunately a direct consequence of his tendency to rush into things aggressively and head first. You see, Shan's mutant ability is to possess and control the bodies of others, and she does this to one of the Hellfire soldiers, but Bobby mistakenly assumes Shan is an enemy trying to hurt Juliana, attacks her, and disrupts her concentration, thus breaking her connection to the body she's possessing. This leads the Hellfire soldier to start shooting at everyone, and Bobby has now depleted his power source by attacking Shan. Juliana sees the imminent danger to Bobby's life and jumps in front of him, sacrificing herself to keep him safe, leaving the girlfriend he loved dead in his arms. It's a really sad moment where Bobby begins his self-reflection that at times in the story is a pendulum swinging between the right path and the wrong path. Bobby likes to win, and when he doesn't win, or when he's not perceiving himself to be in a winning situation, he gets angry, and his mutant ability allows him to express that anger in a not-so-delicate and probably not-so-healthy way through violence. And I believe part of Bobby's arc is learning to control these aggressive impulses and instead choose his battles carefully, and rather than rush in head first, use strategy and tactics to his advantage. As most children can be, he's also just kind of a dreamer. He's somebody who at the inception of the New Mutants sees a world in more of a black and white way than most of the rest of the team does. He has notions of being a great hero without fully understanding the massive responsibility that's associated with that. But through the situations like this one him and his team are thrust into, he will slowly and steadily learn, and he'll evolve from doing heroics from a half place of being on the right side of morality and half for the showboating nature of it, to wholeheartedly being a hero when he needs to be because it's the right thing to do. In his fraught state, he's not too interested in the offer to join Xavier's Institute, and instead initially only goes along with the rest of the team solely to enact revenge on Donald Pierce. But as he engages in that conflict with an untethered rage, eventually that all gets wrapped up, and Bobby makes a great stride as he realizes if he murdered Donald Pierce, he'd become just like the man he hates. So in this instance, he set himself straight on the right path. I should also mention that this story is where Bobby meets Sam for the first time. These two have such an enduring friendship throughout Claremont's run, and even after that really. It's a true brotherly bond that is slowly built up in basically each and every issue that features the two characters. They learn from each other, look after each other, and grow with each other in a wonderfully satisfying way that feels very real. However, initially Sam is working for the Hellfire Club and is on the wrong side of this fight with Donald Pierce, and even goes toe-to-toe with Bobby, temporarily putting him out of commission. This does lead to some initial butting of heads, but Marvel Graphic number 4, the first appearance of the New Mutants team, ends with Bobby and the rest of the group forgiving Sam and giving him a chance to join them. It's one of my favorite comic book panels of all time, and it's just a touching moment that ignites an awesome beginning for this young team. Before we move on, I do want to mention, since so far I've discussed the anger aspect of his personality a lot, Bobby isn't just one-dimensionally angry. He does experience a full range of emotion. However, more often than not, the emotions that traditional culture may perceive as less masculine, like sadness for example, are displayed to us mostly in private moments, which could be attributed to standards of toxic masculinity or aspects of his culture, or more appropriately, those two things are likely intertwined. But a lot of Bobby's progression in this series is also about learning to break down those walls that he's had up his whole life and to share with and also be there for the ones he loves. And now we get into the actual ongoing New Mutant series that Claremont wrote for 54 issues. In this run, we get a lot of moments that reinforce parts of Bobby's personality that I've already discussed, like him showcasing his skills of charm with Rain, him exemplifying that, at first, surface-level hero idealism when he asks Professor Xavier if they're going to be the new X-Men team, him immediately starting a fight when the New Mutants go to the mall and interact with some other kids, and a ton of moments where Bobby rushes into battle either out of anger or because he's got something to prove either to himself or his teammates. I've discussed the concept of found family before in a lot of my videos, as it is an ever-present theme in X-Men books, and a lot of the chipping away at the less than noble parts of Bobby's personality are due to the relationships he begins cultivating with his team. For example, I think the innocence of Rain helps Bobby realize people's emotions aren't toys to be played with or a game to be won. His bond with Sam, of course, helps him keep on a path of morality and gives a differing perspective on responsibility and what that actually means. And just to expand upon that one with an example, when Shan is presumed dead and Bobby is hurt and feels partially responsible and wants to hunt down her killers, Charles Xavier tells him no, which is truly because he sensed the presence of the Shadow King involved, and Charles didn't want to get his new students involved with that. He thought that was a better job for the main X-Men team. In moments of frustration or anger, Bobby has a tendency early on in the New Mutants to quit or run off, and he does both those things after a heated moment with Charles Xavier. Sam follows Bobby and ends up sharing some insights about his life and his own father's death and how he dealt with that. And essentially here he sets Bobby straight. He sets him back on the right path. And when it comes to Danny, I think watching her grow as a leader allows some of the core tenets of being a good leader to start rubbing off on Bobby, and he's actually able to use that and pivot it back and utilize it on her when she needs a pick-me-up too. He's got moments like this with all the major characters, but I just wanted to point out these few examples for the moment. With all of that being said, I would like to move on to the issue where the whole team goes to Brazil and they see how Bobby lives and they meet his mother actually too. While we're presented with what is seemingly a very lavish lifestyle that Bobby comes from, it's quickly revealed through subtext and subtle jabs that become increasingly less subtle that Bobby actually has a family dynamic that's thinly supported and could come toppling down at any moment. His parents seem to be always fighting, and we should especially take note of the way that Bobby's father presents himself, because if Bobby gave into his negative side and didn't have positive influences in his life, he could perhaps walk the same road of greed and anger and bitterness that's led his father to be the way that he is today. The particular argument between Bobby's mother and father here is important as well, because the conflict is based around his mom's job as an archaeologist. She's going on a trip to the Amazon and has invited the New Mutants to join her, and this specific area she's going to is also one that Bobby's father is trying to exploit as part of his business empire. The next day, Bobby's mom is kidnapped by soldiers from the Hellfire Club, which mimics the fate of Bobby's girlfriend Juliana. Determined not to let his mother's fate be the same as Juliana's, Sunspot and the team track down his mother, and Bobby has a one-on-one confrontation with the main aggressor, Axe, who's a mutant we don't really need to talk about that much, but Bobby essentially kicks his butt all by himself and saves his mother. However, the twist here, and the reveal at the end of the issue, is that Bobby's father is the one that ordered this kidnapping to keep them away from, again, the area he'd like to exploit. This is obviously a complete betrayal in so many ways. Not only does it attack the sanctity of their family, but Bobby's father aligning with the group that was responsible for the death of his girlfriend is an incredibly cold and insensitive act. His father seemingly represents the worst possibility of how Bobby could turn out, a literal personification of a warning of sorts that will be further unwrapped as the story progresses. While he doesn't explicitly state it, it even seems that Bobby's father is willing to accept that Bobby and his mother's life could be forfeited as collateral business damage. And he ends up ordering another attempt to keep them away from the Amazon, and it ends with their boat sinking in the river, and Bobby, despite his best efforts, not being able to immediately save his mother. This momentarily regresses Bobby into his default outward emotional state of anger. I should also mention, this is where the team ends up in Nova Roma, which is Amara's home, and it's a hidden little area of Roman culture in the Amazon, a city stuck in time essentially. Bobby gets the chance to do some important reflecting here on his behavior so far as a member of the New Mutants, and again, I think being surrounded by such a caring and kind-hearted team forces Bobby to confront that his communication style outwardly and inwardly may not be effective and may lead less towards productive solutions to his problems and more towards self-pity and more anger. Sadly, in this moment of emotional reflection, Bobby wishes for his father's presence so they can chat and he can get some advice. He clearly loves his father and admires him to some degree despite his grievances, but these emotions will without a doubt make his father's betrayal sting that much more when everything is brought to light. And the truth does in fact come out as Bobby ends up finding his mother in Nova Roma being held prisoner, again by a member of the Hellfire Club, who also reveals that Bobby's father has been behind these kidnapping attempts all along. So while mother and son are united, it seems the family dynamic will be forever shifted. The other important plot point that I think is worth mentioning with Bobby during the team's time in Nova Roma is their fight with Selene, who, if you're unfamiliar with her, she's an extremely powerful, cold-hearted, and calculating psychic vampiric mutant from Nova Roma. Bobby has dealt with a whole lot of emotional baggage so far, and I'm sure it's a very difficult time for him, and his thoughts are teetering between right and wrong, and justice and revenge, and trying to make sense of his moral code. Now, I bring this up because he's pretty brutal when he faces off against Selene. He first stabs her in the heart, which doesn't work in killing her or even really hurting her, but I think we have to assume he thought it would kill her. And he even makes another attempt to kill her, which is the final blow of the fight, where he tosses her in a volcano, which shocks his team, and he's immediately scolded by the friend who's always trying to keep Bobby on the right path, Sam. But Bobby says he doesn't believe that his attack would have killed her based on how powerful she was, which is accurate, she's not dead, but I'm not entirely sure Bobby's intentions weren't murder in this instance. This is just something I wanted to bring up because I think it can tie in with Bobby's tendency to veer off a moral path at times. However, over the run this happens less and less as he learns more about his powers and more about the responsibility that is associated with them. When Bobby returns to his home in Brazil, we get a very dramatic confrontation with his father. Now, if you've been paying attention, Bobby is learning and he's getting better, but effective communication and conflict resolution isn't necessarily his strong suit. So in this conversation, he ends up getting angry, understandably so, and denouncing not only any of his inheritance, but any connection to his father as well. Just as he first attempted to quit and run away from the New Mutants, he quits his family here, but not before also showcasing to his father that the power dynamic is forever switched between the two. He flexes his powers against his father and warns him not to interfere with Nova Roma again or mess with his friends or mother. I found this scene to be pretty nuanced and satisfying, but after Bobby leaves the confrontation, we learn that his mother explicitly warned him against rushing in angry and demonizing his father because she feared that would push the man she loves and that was once loving towards them further away from him. Bobby's father got on the wrong path, and Bobby's methods weren't the right ones to pull him back. After this, his father joins the dark side and not only continues to associate with the Hellfire Club, but he even joins them to Bobby's dismay. This is probably a good moment to talk about Bobby's relationship with figures of authority, and specifically father figures. Bobby desperately looks for guidance in older and wiser male figures, but he doesn't do so blindly. They have to prove themselves worthy of that. As we've already discussed, his father failed this and betrayed him. With Charles Xavier, things start rocky, but eventually Bobby warms up to him and even learns a lot from him, but this too crumbles when Bobby realizes Charles lied about the death of Shan, which is something that weighed heavy on Bobby's soul, so this is another figure who betrayed him in a sense. That doesn't even really receive a concrete resolution, as for the rest of the run, Charles Xavier kind of just dips off into space and leaves Magneto as the headmaster of the school. Now, Bobby starts from a position of already disliking Magneto from his mutant terrorist days, but eventually Bobby ends up giving Magneto a chance as Magneto proves himself a decent teacher in various ways, until all of that falls apart too. And then Bobby himself kind of bails on the team. He goes to spend some time with his mother a bit, he comes back here and there, and then the last larger story focused on Bobby I want to take a look at is the Fallen Angels limited series, where Bobby's aggression actually causes real world harm to befall one of his friends. As he gets so heated during a soccer match, he ends up using his powers on Sam and hurting him. The whole team is angry at Bobby for this, and so yet again, he runs off. I should also mention at first, he goes to speak to Magneto about the incident for advice, notes, but instead he finds an empty office and a progress report about himself on the desk, which basically says that if Bobby doesn't learn to control his anger, then he risks walking down the same path of villainy that his father does. This really upsets Bobby and is another motivator to quit the team and run away. There's a lot to Fallen Angels that isn't necessarily important to go over in this video, since it's a 8-issue limited series that is pretty zany, and I may make another video on it in the future, but the key takeaway I felt was the focus on Bobby as he struggles with the concept of right and wrong, as he's somebody who wants to do right, he wants to be good, but his temperament and self-doubt are often an obstacle standing in the way of that. And like we previously established, Bobby likes to win. He likes to be good at what he chooses to do, and this is him kind of dipping his toes into a less moral life by joining an outlaw group known as the Fallen Angels. But by the end, he realizes all by himself, without the help of Sam, but there was probably Sam's voice echoing in his head, that he can be a hero, and he's the only one in his way. He knows right and wrong, he just has to make the calculated choice to consistently do right and be good. Basically, failing isn't a reason for Bobby to give up on being a hero, it should be his motivation to try again and to try harder. And while Bobby still has a lot to learn and a long way to go, and that's reflected in his post-Claremont journey, he learns extremely important lessons in this run about being a hero, learning to be selfless, and understanding his own flaws so he can correct them and showcase the side of him that is genuinely a good person. He was just a kid when he was given immeasurable strength, and then he had so much ripped away from him, but he persevered and continues to persevere and is now a great mutant hero who will most always put the needs of others before himself. Thank you guys so much for watching this video today, especially if you stuck around till the end. I hope you enjoyed it. I think Sunspot is a really fascinating character, and I plan on doing more of these for the rest of the New Mutants cast. So leave a comment if you enjoyed this, please subscribe if you did as well, and have a great rest of your day.